What is the worst pain you've ever felt? Cluster headache. It's a reason it's called suicide headache. An abscess tooth. I was ready to rip the fucking thing out of my head all by myself. That scene in Cast Away where Tom Hanks' character used the rock and the ice skate blade to knock his own tooth out looked pretty attractive. Hemorrhaging ovarian cyst. The back of my eyeball and optic nerve waking up after emergency retinacryopsy, triggering a massive migraine that felt like I had a spike through my eye and into my brain. It was absolute raw unabashed hell, curled up with my head between my knees crying and screaming. Had to keep facing down because of the gas bubble injected into my eyeball to keep the retina in place, too. Post-biopsy for osteosarcoma bone cancer in my femur. After waking up from the biopsy, they picked my leg up to slide an X-ray pad under it, and the bone just shattered instantly as the tumor had deteriorated the bone to the point where the biopsy needle caused the whole structure to collapse. Without a doubt the most 1110 pain imaginable. Kidney stones. Remember that scene on Alien when that thing ripped out of the people's torsos? Yep, that's what I compare it to because that is what it felt like. Gout. It was paralyzing. I'm sure there's worse, but it was fucking terrible. In bed for over a week. It was my knee. 14 years old, getting silently escorted to the principal's office to be told that my first real and best friend had been hit by a car and killed that morning. I have gone through a lifetime of physical pain, but nothing even comes close to the sundering of my heart that day. I'm 36 now, and I still cry for her and who she could have been. I will carry her and my hurt for the rest of my life. Edit. Thank you all for sharing your condolences and your stories of similar pain. We so often get wrapped up in the mess of what divides us that we often forget that grief and pain are a universal experience. You are not alone. I cannot promise that your grief will be something you can get over, but I can say, with some sense of certainty, that it will get softer with time. Be kind to yourselves. Death of my sister. Died in her sleep at 50. She had been working at a really toxic company for years after they had been bought out by a private equity fund. She could not leave because she needed health insurance for her epilepsy. Left that job on a Friday, was going to take a couple of months off, and then had a new job promised to her for a wonderful company. Died of a heart attack in her sleep on the Monday night. It was so unfair. Was eating raw angel hair pasta. Went to chomp, one the noodle bits turned vertical and went in my gums and up into the tooth cavity and hit a nerve. At least physically back pains have been beating me forever. It's not the severity, even though it hurts, but really how much it pisses me off when I'm sitting down. It's basically impossible to sit still. Testicular torsion. Imagine getting kicked in the balls, then multiply that by 1,000. If I moved my legs at all, I would feel like a horse was kicking me in my balls. And the craziest part? My balls weren't fully twisted, so that shit gets even worse if it fully twists close. And if you wait too long, you risk losing a nut. The morphine was amazing though. A failed spinal tap, followed by kidney stones. Funny enough, a period of constipation. I've had multiple gunshot wounds twice in my life. I've been set on fire, hit by cars, and all the fun of growing up in the 8090s. Not being able to pass a poop takes the cake by far. Not even in the same league as anything else. There was one moment when I was a teenager where I had an upset gut, but my body wouldn't move it. It was uncomfortable at first, but by the end of the 4th day, and I genuinely would have taken death if it was offered. I was in the ER and morphine was not touching the pain. Gallbladder ruptured in the middle of the night. Morphine and fentanyl were administered in the hospital, and the pain just laughed at their pitiful attempts to dampen the agony. I have had pretty extensive sinus surgery, and about 3 days after surgery, I was trying to brush my extremely tangled hair. I was kind of disoriented because you have to do these really painful and long saline rinses or the packing in your nose will harden and cause issues. So anyways, I slipped and hit myself in the nose with the hairbrush. In almost tears, I grabbed the scissors from the counter and cut the rat's nest out of my hair and went and lied back down. I just had the worst migraine and pain afterwards. To this day, if I touch the bridge of my nose just right, I get this disgusting visceral reaction like there is some scar tissue there or something. It's between that or my IUD. The insertion was terrible, but the cramps. My god. My fiancé is a first responder, and he admitted to me a couple years later that he was close to making me go to the ER. The pain was nuts. Some kind of spider bite on my dick. Most excruciating way to end 8th grade. For about 5 minutes my son wasn't breathing when he was born, and my wife's vitals were sketchy on table where they were doing the C-section. Seeing him purple and not crying, and her not really knowing what was going on as the surgeons were literally standing on the table to get better angles. It really looks like she was being crucified. She called out for my hand weakly, and I was torn between her and him. Those moments of not knowing and knowing you could lose one or both in an instant were the greatest pain I've ever felt. But it followed by the most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my entire life. His crying still sometimes brings me to tears. And my wife thinks I'm frustrated or something. But no, because in those moments I think back to how hard I listened for just the smallest sound, begging any god that would listen for my boy to cry out. I will never take it for granted. Ever. Appendicitis. Slammed my thumb in a car door. It hurt more than when I broke my rib.